I'm going to be teaching you about points, line segments, lines, and rays. So we're going to start off learning about points. So here in this picture you see there's point A, point B, and point C. So a point is basically just a dot. And next to the dot we label it with its name. So the name of this one is just point A. The name of this one is point B. Guess what this one's called? Point C. So points are very easy. They're just a dot, a point. Okay? This is called a line segment. Line segment. So a line segment, you could see that there are 2 points on this line segment. We have point A and point B. Now the thing about line segments is that it has a beginning and it has an end. So point A could be our beginning, point B could be our end, or it can be the other way around. Point B could be the beginning, point A can be the end. It doesn't matter. All you need to know is that a line segment has a beginning and it has an end. It doesn't go on forever. It's just this long, a beginning and an end. So you might be asking yourself, how do we name this line segment? Well, there's a couple names for this line segment. One way we could name it is we can call it line segment AB. So you can actually write out the word line segment AB. But that's really long, so we would rather write it a different way. So we could just write A, B, and you can put a little line over it. And it means the same thing as line segment AB. But because it doesn't matter which point is the beginning and which point is the end, we can also reverse it. So it could also be called line segment BA. So this is 3 ways of naming this one particular line segment. This picture is called a line. So lines are a little bit different from line segments because you see the arrows extending beyond the points. So instead of having a beginning and an end, it has no beginning and no end. So because of the arrows means that it goes on forever. So it extends beyond this page. It'll go miles and miles and miles, infinitely long. So it keeps going on forever and ever. So a line has no beginning and it has no end. So it continues forever in both directions. So this is line AB. Okay, so now let's name this line. This line is very similar to a line segment. The line has no beginning and no end. The line segment has a beginning and an end. But to name it, you name it the same way. So we could call it line AB. But that's long. We rather do it a short way. So instead of writing out the word line, we're just going to write AB. And we're going to put a line over it. Notice that I have 2 arrows on my little line there. Okay, so because there's no beginning or no end, we could also reverse it. So it could also be called line BA. Again, notice the little arrows on the marking that I put above the BA. So this is how to name lines. It can go either way. This picture is called a ray. So you can think of it as a ray of sunshine. So rays have a beginning. So beginning is point A. And it does not have an end because there's an arrow. So rays have a beginning, but it has no end. It continues infinitely long, super far. It never ends, only in one direction. So A is the beginning because there is no arrow by A. And on the B side, it has no end. It continues forever whenever you see an arrow. So this is ray AB. Okay, so naming a ray is a little bit more challenging than naming a line segment or a line. It can only be named one way. So when you're naming a ray, it has to start with the end point. So this is the end point because it is on the end. So it is called an endpoint. So when you're naming a ray, it has to be ray A, B. And then you write a little arrow on the top of it. You cannot call it ray BA because the B is not the end point. So you don't do it that way. So rays can only be named one way, beginning with the end point, not the point that is near the arrow. To review, we have the point, line, line segment, and ray. So a point is just one specific place, one dot, a point. Do you remember what the line is about? The line has two arrows. So what does that mean? That means that it goes on forever in both directions. Whenever you see an arrow, it continues forever in that direction. What about the line segment? What's the line segment? What do these points on the line segment mean? It means that the line segment has a beginning and it has an end. It does not continue forever because it does not have arrows. So line segments have a beginning and an end. What about the ray? What does this point and this arrow in the ray mean? It means that there is a beginning. So this is where it begins. But because there's an arrow, it means that it has no end. So a ray has a beginning, but it does not end.